owned by the government, and I'm chairman, and I do report to the Minister of Higher Education. We're not funded by the government. So we're actually non-profit, and we do work, like any other non-profits. Now, the primary objective is really to build volunteer leaders among students, amongst our 1.2 million students. So when you try and build volunteer leaders, you have to actually organize or conduct, or actually really go through student volunteer missions. And what I'd like to show you is a video of what we've done in 2016. So I'll walk through with you the video. Yeah. This is all done by my students, by the way. Yeah. That's the Ministry of Higher Education. And the tagline is "Soaring Upwards." That's the ministry. That's our logo. Right. So these are all students from all over Malaysia, selected students. That's building global volunteer leaders. That's the aim, to make Malaysia a hub for volunteerism as well. So this was last year. In Basan is to show preview, or rather whole review. We went to Sarawak. Sarawak is in Borneo. That's how we will take our students. These are all students, yeah? They're selected students, they are trained, and basically when they finish, they'll go back to their campus, and then they will actually initiate more programs. This is way out in the boondocks of Sarawak, if you like, in the jungle. So these are students from universities, polytechnics, teachers training institutes, and so on. So what we did was we actually built that, for water, gravity water. And because they're also trained to be leaders, they're also selected as, that's our Minister of Defense. So Defense Services Asia, for instance, they're selected as liaison officers. Now this is when we were in Laos. So we do have collaboration with Laos PDR. The ones in blue, they are the Laos students. So together it's problem solving, it's poverty eradication and so on. The solution is simple. It's a haphazard parking lot now turned a proper parking lot for schools, yeah? Then of course we also, we have interviews across the country in Sabah, Sarawak, and Borneo and so on. And selection is really competitive because they have to have the potential to, to be leaders. And of course, this is part of our benchmarking trips. Last year we were in Singapore, we missed SIF, but some of the visits that we benchmark ourselves. So we do this across ASEAN countries as well. Now, because Malaysia is part of ASEAN, we're also very ASEAN-centric. Last year we sent our team to the United Nations here in Korea, actually. Then of course we have our collaboration with Vietnam. So this is in Vietnam. Basically Vietnamese students and ourselves, they stay. This is called the Green Summer Volunteer Campaign, yeah? Every year since 2012, we've been together, and we will do collaborative efforts to help rebuild some of these areas. They will build roads, friendship houses, and so on, yeah, basically. Because in Vietnam, some of these programs, if you like, will not be funded by the government. So it's all up to volunteers to do the work. Yeah, so these are cadet officers, basically they're students. Yeah. This is in Tawau, Sabah. This is how we would do. We in turn invite foreign students to come and participate, primarily ASEAN. So we have Singapore students, we have Indonesian students, Laos students, Vietnamese participating. And this is what they do. I mean, they could very well be, medical students or any students, any background. Inclusiveness is a very important aspect. We also have our alumni doing projects, basically helping out refugees in France. Kitchen and Calais, this is the jungle, these are all refugee camps. Feeding 1,500 refugees for 3 weeks every day, By the way, the whole camp has been bulldozed by the French government. Yeah, so it no longer exists, yeah? So we also do things like projects like Save the Turtles and so on and so forth. So these are, the regular projects. Now this one is interesting because this is actually what we call a volunteer weekend where we mobilize. Putrajaya, as you know, is our capital, administrative capital. So the idea was to mobilize all the citizens of Putrajaya into that whole weekend of doing all kinds of volunteer efforts like medical screening, like free dental and so on and so forth. So the whole idea was to work across ministries. It's under our new, under our National Blue Ocean Strategy. Yeah. So this is also a volunteer weekend, and then of course we are members of IVCO, so we participated in Mexico. That's our ambassador, and also we were involved. We make sure that our student volunteer leaders are active across the world as well. Yeah. We are also active. We support United Nations volunteers for volunteer weekend. So this particular year we were very much into all folks. The year before that we were into children, so pediatrics ward and so on. And every year we will invite all our student volunteer leaders back into what we call a volunteer leadership development program, where we actually train them to be market savvy, to make sure they're graduate employable, to bursa and so on. So the whole idea is we want them to be versatile, to holistic, because it's part of our blueprint, national higher education blueprint, to make students holistic and balanced, and so that it's not just academic, but actually basically to have a well-rounded education. So that's a video to show what we've done for the whole of 2016. Yeah, so now I'll proceed with the slides proper. That would be this. Right. Yeah, as I said, this is part of our National Higher Education Blueprint, that's 2015 till 2025, whereby the students' aspirations. So they've listed down what do the students want. Basically they want to, or rather the outcome of these students as they graduate. Ethics and spirituality, leadership skills, national identity, language proficiency, thinking skills and knowledge. And of course, Mohi is Minister of Higher Education, and our objectives, our initiatives, rather, is basically here. The volunteerism is certainly a very important aspect that the government wants to make sure that all students partake, in volunteer efforts. Then there is the latest, is the redesigning of higher education. This is all national policies. Now, YSS, that's us. We actually deal with institutions, ladies and gentlemen. So when we talk about institutions, we deal with university community transformation centers. These are all the equivalent of, if you're in UK, it's like the town and gown concept. So, and the idea is to make universities the center of development. So basically, activities around the universities. And then of course, the public universities, private universities, and so on and so forth. And then you have all the other NGOs and so on that we deal with. Yeah, right. Now, as I mentioned just now, we're believers of National Blue Ocean Strategy, which means we cut across all agencies, ministries, and so on. So instead of working in silo, and all our projects, all our programs, all our missions must be high impact. They must be high impact, they must be low cost, because ladies and gentlemen, we're not funded, so we have to pitch for funds. So therefore, anything we do, it must be high impact, it must be measurable, it must be low cost and rapid execution. So we do all these reports, we're accountable to our stakeholders and funders and so on. Basically, to overcome, when you don't have money, or rather minimal funding. So to overcome is you make sure that you actually work with other ministries. So for instance, if you notice in the video, like, our student volunteers were actually on these big trucks. Those were military trucks. So we actually work with MINDEF, Ministry of Defense, and we get all the assets for free. So we don't have to pay for logistics. Because we found that, every mission, which means students volunteer mission, the cost of transport and logistics, the flights, they take up about 80% or 70 to 80% of our total costs. I mean, a flight to Laos, to Vientiane, for instance, is equivalent to flying to Sydney or to, that's how expensive it is, because otherwise, if you have those direct flights to Asia, but they're not daily. So when you do programs, you have to, and you're mobilizing about 50 or 100 students, so they're pretty costly. And even to Malaysia, to go to Sabah and Sarawak from Kuala Lumpur to actually Borneo, to Sarawak, the cost is very expensive. And the places that we go to are in the interiors, and that requires transport, you have to have four-wheel drives, you have to have, really big, huge trucks, because some of the roads, or even boats for that matter, yeah? Yeah, so we believe in, blue ocean strategy, in cutting across, breaking the silo and cut across agencies. Now, as I said, we are into capacity building. We are, anything we do, YSS is the building global volunteer leaders. I'm going to go through very fast. Everything must be high impactful. And we believe in inclusiveness. So all our students, no matter what background, what college, what discipline, so as long as they're selected over interviews, then they come in and participate. And it must be immersion. So for any, when they, get involved with community engagement, it is an immersion process. You eat, you live, you breathe with the local community. So they homestay, they really get involved, with the community. And it must be the right volunteers for the right job. So for instance, if you're a medical student, then the focus is really on medical screening and medical camps. But however, we've got our 6 clusters, ladies and gentlemen, you've got this, our sustainability report. So in there will be 6 clusters which YSS student volunteers must partake and must get involved in. So we believe in capacity building to sharpen the critical thinking skills and solving conflicts and so on. And of course, it's all part of the experiential learning. So they're applying what they're learning in college and so on, yeah? And volunteers involvement, typically after they graduate or after they finish our mission, they're automatically called alumni. They could still be in college. So they are supposed to, part of their KPIs is really to initiate. So it's like, we track them, we stalk them, we really track them so that they actually then move on to do more projects and so on. And it's a movement for national unity. So when you talk about development, you talk about sustainable communities, we want to make sure that we support, and we get support from all the various organizations and so on, and corporates as well. So there's a lot of corporate volunteering involved as well. Companies would come in and send their staff, key staff, for about a weekend, whereas we're probably doing it for about a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, or 1 month, and they will send just for about over a weekend, with a small, in return for a small token sponsorship and so on. So that's how we kind of collaborate with corporates, yeah? We believe in winning people's hearts, mind and soul beyond borders. Now, in building the global volunteer leaders, let me just show you a case study. As I mentioned, where, we look at all the universities. We've got 20 public universities in Malaysia, 66 and more, so then all the community colleges. So it's partnership within the various colleges, various institutions and so on and so forth, yeah? And in capacity building, as a case study on an international level, we also have strategic alliances, with, internationally. ASEAN, we're very much ASEAN-centric as well. We're firm believers of supporting our ASEAN neighbors so that they come up, to speed, if you like. And also, these are all our capacity building partners and agencies, yeah? Now, Movement for National Unity, case study, in Malaysia itself, we do constant volunteer weekends for instance, we've got a lot of these tribals of ethnic groups and so on, so we're spending weekends with them, there's a lot of interaction and so on. Then, of course, partnership approaches. There are, for us, the key takeaways would be, in the local context, as I mentioned, we are believers in national blue ocean strategy, understanding the government thinking to complement the government agenda. So the NGOs, the non-profits, to make sure it's in line, capacity building people and community. And of course, in the global context, we are also very much believers of Look East policy. We're, South-South cooperation. We're also like-minded entities. We're, believers of like-minded entities in the Asia continent, especially in the ASEAN region, and of course, also with international linkages. So we're looking forward towards collaboration with international agencies where we can actually learn and improve our capacity building so that it helps our, our student volunteer leaders in terms of volunteer management, volunteer leadership, and so on. Right, so there you are. In conclusion, I want to show you a quick video, a very 1-minute video of our collaboration in Laos, for instance. Oh no, so this is in Vietnam. We built roads in Vietnam. So these are the our students and their students, basically. So, and this is in Laos. So just to show you, this is in Champasak. Yeah. This is a school. This is a typical secondary school. The children, they ride to school. But the sense of parking, I think I mentioned just now, is haphazard. So students did this video, they identified a problem and they said, let's do something about it. It made it look simple. That's the school. Yeah? You'll be lucky, quite a number of schools don't actually have walls. So here, this one is not too bad. So between the Malaysian and the Laos students, they all, because we're together, you see, we are believers that when we go into a country, whether it's Vietnam, Laos, or wherever, it must be together with their students. So, right. They've identified the problem, they decided to find a solution as basic, as simple. Our Malaysian students and Laos students working hand in hand. Collaborative efforts. Solution? Simple. You would think it's a very simple thing, but it's low cost, it's very impactful. And that's in Ban Kun Tong, in Champasak. Yeah, so, that's it. Thank you very much.